So let's get into this first story, Terrance. This is a tech story that seems like it will just not stop. It is LastPass, and this is, I don't want to say it's like one of the worst breaches in history, because that is, let's just say this one is very, very, very bad. This breach that they went through last August seems like every couple months something new just comes out. And for me, for one, I have said on numerous occasions I was getting off of LastPass. And what happened, and I imagine this happened to a lot of folks, is that I started getting off, and then it started getting difficult, started getting harder. There's things that I'm just going to leave this here for right now, and I'll eventually get it off to the point to where it's now out of sight, out of mind. And I personally am using one, Bitwarden and LastPass simultaneously. But this last one is making me say it might be time to for real drop these folks all the way. To tell folks who don't know what we're talking about here is that LastPass engineers' home PC got hacked. So they were able to get access to so much because of what they were able to get off of one of four people's home computer. So what has me sitting here thinking is, like, how can you be a security company and allow that kind of stuff to happen off somebody's home PC?
Well, so my guess, without any sort of empirical evidence or knowledge, it happens a lot in my suspicion or assumption is it happens a lot, and it has happened to this level before at other companies. The problem is it's 2023 and it's all about transparency, and LastPass started down the road of letting people know specifically what was going on. So as a result, they can't stop. They like I said, the story that I'm talking about, it came from Gizmodo. They kind of chronicleize, all the things that have happened and all of the communications that LastPass has shared with customers via customer email or via their blog or whatever the case may be. So it's like they started and said, oh, this happened because we're worried, but we want to make sure that we let the users know that your information is secure, And then they kept giving out more details. But we want to let you know, all your information is secure. Nobody got this, that, and the third. And they got to keep going. So they can't stop. They could stop, which is what other companies have done. They've just not gave any information this detailed as to what happened. Companies will say, oh, we got hacked. We're monitoring the situation. We can assure you that no customers' information was leaked. And that's where they stop. LastPass was like, all right, well, we got to make sure that we let the users know that we care about your data, but also we're not going to lie to you. We're not going to hide anything. So here's all the information. And too much information can be a bad thing, to where now they've pretty much, like you mentioned, I'll just read this quote from Gizmodo. It says, according to a press release published Monday, the initial August data breach allowed cyber criminal in question to hack into the home computer of LastPass most privileged employees, senior DevOps engineer, and one of only 4 employees with access to decryption keys that could unlock the platform shared cloud environment. The hacker subsequently laced the engineers with a keylogger. Again, this is not nothing new. I'm pretty sure this happens all the time, to where somebody's personal computer gets hacked. They put a keylogger on there and they wait for the person to get in and log in using their credential information, and we got you. This is not something new that has happened just to LastPass and created just for the sake of getting into LastPass. This type of, of course, I'm not a hacker, so, I don't know how to do this, but this sounds like something that happens all the time. It just so happens to happen to LastPass. And again, LastPass shared all their information or chronicalized all of the details as it relates to this breach, and they had to keep going because they kept telling people, all right, we want to make sure we stay transparent, yada yada yada. So this is where too much information became a bad thing. So basically, again, once they entered the information, it allowed them to steal the LastPass master keyword, Using the password, the cyber criminal managed to break into the engineer's password vault and taking necessary decryption keys from the engineer cloud, proceeded to penetrate LastPass, shared cloud account, which they were able to then actually steal the actual data. So I think it just so happens that LastPass got caught with this, but I don't think this is new. And I'm pretty sure this happened before. It just so happened that LastPass decided we're going to be transparent, and they gave out all the details, which again, I was the type of person that's like, oh, well, I trust that my security on LastPass, I use their their two-factor authenticator app to log into LastPass. I got a complex passphrase. I should be good. But I think that the fact that LastPass has shared this information, it's almost like I just need to leave just for general principle. It's the principalities.
The principalities about it. So you say it's like they've given too much information. And I think one of the problems that a lot of people have is that they weren't as forthcoming with the information as they probably should have been. I have to wonder if back in August, or let's say sometime in September, if LastPass would have came out and said, we were breached, it is bad as you think it is, and maybe even worse. Here's what you need to do.
So you think they knew all of this ahead of time? I'm thinking, my understanding was they kept investigating, kept highlighting, informing people what was going on. Now they're getting down to, oh, that's how they got in. Well, I guess we can't not tell them because we told them all this stuff ahead of time beforehand. Previous to this, we told them everything. Now we got to keep going. That's the impression I was. Now, if you're telling me that you think LastPass knew exactly how they were hacked or breached back in August, then that's a totally different conversation.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that when they came out and with their initial assessment, and I'm paraphrasing here, but LastPass made it seem like, oh no, you're pretty much good. Mm-hmm. You're straight. Create a new password, new master account password just to be safe, but everybody's good. And then it's like, oh no, you're not quite as good as we thought you were. You need to do these things. And then it's like, oh no, they have everything. And then it's like, oh no, they have everything. Mm-hmm. And here is how they got it. If this is all new information, then the way the chips are falling, the way the cards are falling are just bad luck for LastPass. So I think part of this too is the fact that they are a company that, I mean, it's in the name of the company, or the name of the product, LastPass. It's like, this is a security company. So when you start to look at a security company and, as you're saying, this could happen to, I don't want to say it can happen to anyone, but it could happen to many people. It absolutely could. But when you start to see you are a security company and they were able to get this because they basically pwned your, one of four people's home computer that has access to everything. And it's like, well, we know when you are dealing with, someone who has access to anything, you need to darn near be an air gap computer when you're dealing with that vault. How can somebody get this by getting into your home password? Now, what it is, the information wasn't on the home computer. It was, they put a keylogger in there. So when they're using the home computer and they see you typing in your LastPass password, now they've got that based off everything else that they've already got. So they can go in and they can start looking at that. So I understand that this is, they got and it's bad. Mm-hmm. But it's just the fact that, and this is just, a circumstance for that LastPass is going through. You're a security company. And from what it looks like to the layperson, as you completely fell down on this. So what do we do? Because here's the thing. I'm not regular people when it comes to my level of, the level of security and passwords and two-factor authentication. I think that I'm a little extra, as probably many listeners of our show are. My question, and this is actually something that came up on our Discord earlier today or yesterday, I can't remember when, about this story. And it was, well, how do I get my one of our listeners says, how do I get my 73-year-old mother to switch off of this? Because I understand what it is like to get someone on LastPass. It literally took me a year and a half. You really should use a password vault. You really should use a password vault for my parents. And for me to go to try to switch them to something else, I really have to think about, is doing that going to be better to just get them off LastPass on something else than to just leave them there and to make sure that they change their password. I really have to, walk through that, because my thought is that they was fine using, PA at, $$ W0RD,
point.
Exactly, as their password before. They would be absolutely fine going back to that. They just don't think about this or care that much. So is it worth switching off for regular folks? Is it worth trying to get them to use 1Password? Is it worth trying to get them to use Bitwarden?
Well, it depends on
what the question is.
It depends on how you feel about how LastPass handled this situation, right? If you feel like they were being super transparent, or as transparent as they could be, and as soon as they got new information, they passed it along to the customers, along with reassurance and tips and tricks how to, further lock down your account. If you feel that way, then you're like, hey, things happen. It just so happened to happen to LastPass. It's messed up because it's LastPass, because of the information that they have. But hey, it could happen to anyone. It just so happened to happen to LastPass. Then you probably say, maybe it's not worth the effort to change yourself or change your friends and family who may not be as tech savvy. If you're of the mind that LastPass was I think they knew about the breach, and we want to believe that they are being transparent, but when in actuality, they was trying to just gap out the information so people will forget about it, right? To where by the time you hear about this, you forget about all the other things that happened prior to that. And now they just, they were just trying to cover their ass, basically. Then I can't rock with them, and it may be worth it. I may switch just out of principle, because it's like, it's just too much, too often happening with LastPass for me to be in good faith continue to use this. Now, luckily, I haven't tried to convince family members and things like that, because I know what time it is with my family. Plus, specifically for my intermediate family that lives in this house, my kids, I really haven't even introduced them to LastPass. They've been using Apple Keychain, and I use, similar to how you use Bitwarden and LastPass simultaneously, I use Apple Keychain and LastPass simultaneously. Anything that I log in on a regular basis, I'll create an account in a username password in Apple Keychain, and then let LastPass recognize, oh, you created a new account. Do you want to add this to LastPass? I'm like, sure. But I'm using Keychain as the main login, and LastPass almost like a backup. And then I use LastPass, which is why it's so dope, but which is so sad, is because LastPass keeps more than just usernames and passwords, right?
Notes, driver's license, social security card, all that
Wi-Fi, like I said, anytime I go to a family member's house to fix their computer, set up their Wi-Fi, create an account, I put that in LastPass, because I know they're going to call me back. And I know they're going to hit me back. So it's like, well, let me save it in LastPass now. I don't have that stuff in Apple Keychain. I use my personal stuff. But anybody else, my in-laws, my aunts, my parents, all that stuff is in LastPass. And it's like, dang, man, now I got to switch all that to something else.
I have not lived at home with my folks since 1990. My father last week called me up to ask me what his Wi-Fi password was.
Yep.
Not because I set it up, just because he knows that I know it.
Yep. Email addresses for my folks.
Yeah.
Cash App, because they're always like, well, how do I do the Cash App? I'm move. Let me log in remotely. Now here's the new password, and I save that in LastPass and let them log in and wait until they call me again because they forgot the password again. Right. So Which makes, again, that's what makes LastPass so useful, is because you can use it for more than just usernames and passwords. Like I said, I've got birth certificates in there. I've got social security cards in there. I've got passports, driver's license in there. And it's like, this is just too much for me to throw this in jeopardy. And just off of principle, I may have to move to 1Password, or Dashlane is a popular one for Apple. So don't use that one.
I security people that I know and trust, and
don't mess with that.
One of them as well. Do not use that one.
So
I just leave that there because I can't tell you why. There's somebody that I trust. This is, if anything, just don't use this.
Fair enough. What I may have to do is use Keychain for my passwords, and then set up some secure notes in the Apple Notes app, and use that as a place to store, scan documents, important information, things like that I don't necessarily need a username and a password for. Put that stuff there, because I don't like using a bunch of different things. That's why I like Apple. They lock you in the ecosystem. The bad thing is Apple locks you in the ecosystem. The good thing is it's a dope ecosystem, right?
Dope ecosystem. so here's the thing. So number one, I want to be very clear on this, because I have for years been a big recommender of LastPass. I am no longer recommending password. I'm no longer recommending LastPass to anyone. If you need a password vault, there are many out there, but LastPass is not one that I'm actually saying, yeah, go check this one out. It's just been too much. That being said, and this is something that I saw someone who was like, this is why I'm not getting off of them. This was a breach. We've just heard about it 5 or 6 times, but it's the same breach. It's not like they've had 5 or 6 breaches.
They've had some other stuff in the past.
Yeah, they had, but this one, this particular
ongoing
one
story
is just an ongoing. He called it the never-ending story. Actually,
right,
it's like it just keeps going and going and going. And it's like, so if they would have came out and said, so yeah, we were breached. It's horrible. It's probably worse than you think. Here's what you need to do to rectify the situation. Saying it is as bad as you possibly think it can be. You need to go out and mitigate by doing this, by doing that, by doing this, by doing that. That would have been worse than, no, it wasn't that bad. Nah, it's a little worse than we thought. It's pretty bad. It's as bad as you possibly can think.
Right.
Wow, we were doing some really stupid stuff that allowed this to happen in the first place. When you keep getting it like that, you're getting all these cuts, but it's still the same level of breach that happened all the way back in August.
Gotcha.
So that being said, you should be doing something with your your passwords. Password vaults are generally a good way to go. So I recommend password vaults. I'm just not giving any recommendation on any individual tool, because the one that I rocked with, I don't know that I'm rocking with anymore, and I haven't really made my mind up on an alternative. But they are all better than not using one.
And I've been keeping this LastPass stuff to myself. I just sent my wife a text message of this story that we're talking about now. I know for a fact she's going to make me move. That's half of the reason why I don't tell her nothing, because by the time I tell her, it's pretty bad or it's pretty important. So me sending her this text message, I got some work cut out for me for the next couple of weeks.
Right.